great that we're talking about recovery. And I'm noticing that in lots of different groups, forums, business owners that I work with. There's been a real shift, I think, in the last couple of weeks, and green shoots coming through. I think the important thing about the question, what does recovery look like for you, is for each business to start thinking about that now. It will be different for everyone, depending on your sector, depending on your clients, depending on where you were as a business when this happened. But the important bit is to actually start visualizing ahead. What does your business look like going into that recovery? And of course, we talk about communication and engagement on here, and where and how are you having those discussions with your team, who will really help you to work through what that might look like collectively.
Yeah, but it's interesting actually, Nat, saying about how she's seeing some change and movement around this, and just talking about recovery. We've been getting lots of clients asking about this, and also being asked to run some webinars on how actually to move into recovery. So it's clearly something that people are starting to think about at the moment, which is a really good thing. And I think you're right, it doesn't really need a lot of thought. There's so many different aspects to consider. You know, we've been through such a major change in our whole existence and our working lives and everything, and I think if we don't give this some really good thought as business owners, and certainly, you know, we're looking already at things we can do to help our businesses think about this, I think it'll become a real problem for us, you know, if we don't give it a thought now.
One of the things that I found within Tandem is some businesses have been going full steam ahead through all of this, and they're the ones who are going to be ahead. Some have paused and they're sort of considering unpausing, but they're not too sure when to unpause. And then some are just completely and utterly furloughed the whole business, not just the team. So I think it's going to be different for different businesses. So it's how you as a business can navigate your way through keeping your team on side. And as you say, Michelle, I think getting them to help you with the vision, which we can talk more about in the video.
It's interesting, we've been giving a lot of thought to this because we've been getting so many people asking us about kind of what do we need to be thinking about now, and we've come up with a 4-staged approach to this that kind of lines up with the whole recovery plan for the government. So really thinking about what those 4 stages, and for me one of the most important stages is what we should be doing now, which is reviewing what are we doing now, what's working, what isn't, what do we need to be, what have we learned, what are the things that we need to be considering, because then we need to start to regroup and make a plan. We need to start actually now planning for what is coming. What does that all look like? As we've just said already, what does recovery look like for us? So what's the plan leading into that? Because ultimately, for some companies, soon they will be reintegrating. They will be bringing their teams back together, whether it's a shop or whether it's in the office, whatever it is. There's a lot of things to consider, and the emotions that are going to go with that are going to be huge, and teams bringing them together. And then we can go into rebuilding for the future. So we've kind of looked at that 4-stage approach to help businesses to consider how they can move really well and successfully into recovery.
I really like that, Michelle. I like that idea. I think the important thing for any business in terms of being a resilient business is being able to have a high-level plan that you can flex. So we've talked before about a lot of unknowns. We know that if we look at the roadmap that the government have published, it's very high level, and I know people have mixed views about that, but it's high level for a reason, because it allows you to adapt and maneuver as you go along because of the uncertainty. And so for me, it's businesses being able to have a plan with some certainty in it, but then being comfortable about how they execute it may change. Because will there be a second spike? Nobody knows. None of us know what's coming down the line, but at least having that overall plan, as Michelle's described, gives you that purpose, gives you that future looking, that proactive approach. But all I would say is don't be too rigid in your execution of it, so you can adapt, but also engage your workforce. And I know I sound like a broken record, but that is the way to do it, isn't it? At each stage, what's changed? What do we need to do now? But keep that overall strategic direction.
Well, I would agree, and I think I really like your stages, Michelle, of review, regroup, reintegrate and rebuild. I think as part of that, there needs to be a proper communications plan, both internally, which we've been talking about on these videos, but also externally. And I think now you can start talking externally to your customers about becoming more visible. You need to become more visible. All the way through, we've been saying you need to stay visible, but some people haven't been able to do that for whatever reason. But now you definitely need a plan of how you are going to be visible, and need to get the team on board. I think it will be challenging for some businesses who will have some furloughed and some unfurloughed staff. So that's going to need a lot of thought, because obviously some will be coming back, some will be still furloughed. There'll be a lot of uncertainty for those people. I think we know from having talked to each other about when they're furloughed. So then there needs to be some thought about what it's like for different groups of people and for customers.
Well, I think it's really quite fascinating. You've just picked up on it there, Rachel, about your external communication and your customers. So the example that I'm going to give, it's a really simple one, but I think it'll be going on in households up and down the country. We were talking the other day about my sons and when the barbers will be open, and will it be the 1st of July? But then we ended up with a whole speculative conversation about how will that work? Will you need to make an appointment? Will you queue? What will there be? And it just made me think, if I was a barber's, or if I was coaching a barber's right now, I'd be saying, you need to get your online booking up now for the 1st of July. So start taking the bookings, show people that you plan to be open for business from the 1st of July, and set out what precautions you're planning to put in place. And I accept that it might change, but at the moment, work on that positive view that you're going to open. Get ahead of your competitors. Get yourself fully booked for July and August, because I guarantee hairdressers, barbers, nail salons, and lots of other services are going to be overwhelmed with demand. And I just wouldn't sit there and wait for the 1st of July before you start telling people and sharing that you're open and are going to be open for business.
Yeah, my son works in a shop in York, and he's obviously the plan is that he'll go back on the 1st of June. His employer have been fantastic. They've been, and we've been talking about it. It's almost like we need to re-onboard people, like we didn't onboard new starters. It is almost like that reintegrating, bringing people back. He's had like company videos that have shown him around the shop, and he's had videos around how to keep it, because they're handling stuff, actually how to look after himself, how to look after the customers. So he's had loads of stuff, 2 weeks ahead of potentially them opening. And I think that's what we need to be thinking about now, isn't it? Is actually what are we doing to help re-onboard our people and our customers, and have everything in place so that people feel more comfortable about going back. He is feeling okay about going back to work. He's looking forward to it. And I think that's a really good sign. That's what we need to be helping our people to be and feel.
So yes, I think that's a really great example, Nat. Your dinner table discussions sound very high level and strategic. I think that's great idea. Basically, any barber, hairdresser or whatever can start by getting a digital platform, like a booking platform, where people can just book on. I don't think they cost much to subscribe to, and that's as you say, they could have a full order book. My personal trainer's been doing that throughout the whole pandemic, and he was the last person who was going to use technology. So I think that's great. And I think that there's not just that, but there's social media, obviously website, things like WhatsApp, that kind of thing. People can start communicating externally and internally. I'm really thinking that if you want to get ahead, you need to start making people realize that you are open. I mean, we've got property developers, some of which are communicating quite openly that they're open, their show homes are open, they're taking appointments for people to go and have a look around. And then we've got other property developers who are much slower and they're not getting as many inquiries. So I mean, that's a really, really good example of, if you're ahead, you're going to get more customers through the door.